Hello everyone, my name is Slavko Komarnitsky and I'm Associate Professor with NC State University and the Director of Mobile Discovery Program. Today I'm here to talk about the endocannabinoid system. Endocannabinoid system is a very interesting system because we discovered it not so long ago, maybe 30-40 years, and it's a layered system. So basically it consists of 3 different groups of molecules which work together to make it happen. So the first one is cannabinoid receptors, right? These are the molecules which sits on the outside of the cell and perceive the cannabinoid signals. Then there is the signals themselves. These are the endocannabinoid molecules which our body produces, which travel from one tissue of the body to another tissue of the body and carry the signal. And finally, the metabolic enzymes that stop the signal from propagating. So basically what they do, they metabolize cannabinoids to make them inactive. Endocannabinoids themselves are lipid molecules, right? So our body uses fats, lipids, to basically signal from one part of the body to another part of the body on how efficient system works, right? And the reason why we use lipids is very simple. Lipids are soluble in the cell membranes, so it's very easy for them to be produced in the cell, to travel across the membrane, carry over to another part of the body, and give away the signal to another tissue. They are produced in our bodies, right? That's why they're called endocannabinoids, but they're also found in other organisms like plants, which make molecules which are similar to endocannabinoids, and because of the similarities in the structure, they also have a similar function if they happen to be ingested into our body. We produce endocannabinoids on demand. So basically what happens is that we always have a small pool of cannabinoids ready to go, and the body releases them in response to the environmental or physiological clues to make sure that the system is kept in homeostasis. The endocannabinoids bind to cannabinoid receptors, and they release different signals, including neurotransmitters, which regulate functions of the physiological systems. There are 2 major endocannabinoids in our bodies. I mean, the famous one, anandamide, and then there are less known ones, the 2-AG. Everybody knows about anandamide because this was the first endocannabinoids that were discovered. Basically, everybody thinks that anandamide is the core part of the endocannabinoid system because it is responsible for the feeling of happiness and satisfaction that we always get when everything is working out correct. However, the 2-AG is basically a black horse in our endocannabinoid system. It's a silent molecule which is behind the scenes, but it's the one that's actually produced at much higher levels on a constant supply to make sure that the system works properly. The other types of cannabinoids, which can be found outside of our bodies, are mostly coming from plants. And because of that reason, they are called phytocannabinoids. And these are the molecules which are structurally very similar to endocannabinoids, which means that once ingested, they can travel through our body and they can interact with endocannabinoid receptors. But they are produced and secreted by plants. One of those plants being hemp. It's interesting to know that hemp produces a variety of endocannabinoids, about 90 of them. And all these molecules, they're structurally a little different, which means they will have different affinities for the receptors, and they will have different speeds with which they cross the cell membrane and interact with those receptors, which means they will have slightly different physiological effects. There are also some synthetic cannabinoids which we can synthesize in a lab, which also interact with endocannabinoid receptors and can basically produce very similar physiological effects. The cannabinoid receptors themselves, these are the primary targets of the ECS system in the body. And from now, for the most part, we know about 2 well-characterized cannabinoid receptors. And for the shortness of being abbreviated, they are called CB1 and CB2. They are very similar, both in their structure, in their function. So what differentiates the activity of the 2 receptors, it's where they are located and what kind of signals they transduce. CB1 receptors are mostly located in the central nervous system, or CNS, and those receptors are primarily responsible for psychoactive, neuromodulatory, and analgesic properties of cannabinoid system. These are the receptors which are specifically targeted by THC, the psychoactive component of cannabis. And you can find them in brain, you can find them in fat cells, liver cells, and musculoskeletal tissues. On the other hand, if you're looking outside of the CNS, in the periphery of the body, you will see the majority of the CB2 receptors are found in there. They're especially abundant in the immune system, so we are talking about macrophages and B and T cells, They're responsible for the immune system activation. And they're also present in the gastrointestinal system, where they regulate a lot of processes involved in the digestion and absorption of metabolites. The reason that CB1 and CB2 receptors are spatially distributed in our body is because they perform a slightly different function. The receptors in CNS are responsible for our well-being and for the perception of pain. The receptors on the outside of the system, they are responsible for the regulation of our immune system, making sure that our bodies adapt and perform well if environment challenges us in any way. So when you think about phytocannabinoids present in plants, they do exactly the same thing. Once ingested, they will travel through our bodies and interact both with CB1 and CB2 receptors, and this way they will be able to support our mental and immune health. The ECS system is a very peculiar system. It basically was designed by evolution to help us to deal with the chronic stress. If you can think about it, our bodies are bombarded from the environment with myriad of different signals, right? We have to react to visual clues, auditory clues, temperature, stress, attack, and we have to respond to the environment, which means we have to perceive those signals, process them, and then build up some kind of answer to them. Our physiological system is great in doing that. What's important for us is that once these signals are entering our body, they need to be silent and bring back to the baseline levels. And this is what the critical part of the ECS is. So in a way, ECS system put brakes on every single signaling which happens in our bodies. Right? So if you overstimulate immune system, ECS system steps up to basically bring it down, calm it down, and put it in a baseline so we are ready for the next challenge. If you are too excited and your cardiovascular system goes up, you pump a lot of blood, you get a flush on your face, the ECS system steps in to slow down the signal transmission into your body and put it back in check. Because cannabinoid system is present everywhere in our bodies and can be found in every single cell, it ties those cells and ties those physiological systems together. So basically corresponding to a wide array of different functions put together to support the basic homeostasis in our body. Most of the time we don't even realize it's there. And pretty much every single thing that you do, whether you relax, whether you eat food, so you participate in metabolism, you sleep, you try to memorize something. The ECS system is behind the scene working to put everything back to the baseline to make sure that you can function again. Because the ECS system is involved in so many different physiological systems, it regulates many complex functions associated with body development. It plays part in development and maturation of our immune system, it resolves inflammation, helps with perceiving and resolving pain and forming emotional memories, and it also plays a critical role in neuroplasticity during the embryonic development. So when our nerve cells start growing and start forming the connection, the ECS works behind the scenes to make sure that these connections are formed properly, and then once the signal crosses those connections, make sure that these signals are destroyed and removed from the system. Taken together, you can see that the function of ECS is extremely complex, and different parts have to work together properly in order to make sure that the system keeps the body in homeostasis. Together, we define this notion as endocannabinoid tone, basically a state of proper functioning of ECS when all components are present in proper quantities and they are in a full functional status and available to perceive and transmit endocannabinoid systems throughout the body. Endocannabinoid tone is influenced by the physical activity, nutrition, and stress management in our bodies. Let's talk a little bit more about phytocannabinoids, the cannabinoid molecules which are present in plants. One of the most famous sources of cannabinoids is cannabis, and medicinal uses of cannabis-based products have been documented for thousands of years. It's very important to understand the legal differences between the hemp and marijuana because both of these names are attached to the cannabis plant. The major difference is the THC content of the plant. Legally, if there is less than 0.3% of THC found in a dry weight of the plant, this type of the plant is considered hemp, and anything above that, the plant is considered and regulated as marijuana. Hemp is typically described as fiber, stalk, and seeds taken from the cannabis plant, and it's been long utilized for all kinds of production in agriculture, construction, fiber, and medicine. Plant plants originated in Central Asia, and they were cultivated for about 10,000 years in the recorded histories that we know of, and maybe much earlier than that. And as human population migrated from Central Asia to different parts of the world, they took the cannabis plants with them. There is a big reason why they did it. It's because of the THC and CBD molecules which are present in those plants, which interact with cannabinoid system and help us to feel better in many different ways. Phytocannabinoids in hemp mostly activate CB2 receptors, which means that they lack the psychoactive activity associated with THC. Other phytoactive compounds found in hemp include terpenes and stilbenes, and these are responsible for sensory and aromatic properties of the hemp strains that you can experience. Hemp oil, usually extracted from the flowers, seeds, and stalk of the hemp, is creating a full spectrum phytocannabinoid products which can be isolated from hemp. Basically, you can think about it as hemp oil which combines the cannabinoids present in a plant. Marijuana is typically defined as all parts of the plant excluding the stalk and seeds, and favors high THC content over other phytocannabinoids which are present in hemp plants. Polyunsaturated fatty acids are both precursors and homeostatic regulators of endocannabinoids. And this way, they support the endocannabinoid tone and they support the ECS system. There are two types of polyunsaturated fatty acids, and they are known as omega-3 and omega-6, depending on where the unsaturated double bond is found in their chemical structure. The omega-6 fatty acids serve as a major source for the production of anandamide and 2-AG, while the omega-3 fatty acids are metabolized directly into EPA and DHA, and these two molecules are critical for the regulation of our immune function. They ultimately give rise to inflammation-resolving factors, including resolvins, protectins, and marazines that stop the propagation of inflammation in our bodies. Omega-3 and omega-6 endocannabinoid precursors share similar receptor activation pathways. In conclusion, let's summarize the key points of today's discussion. ECS is a very complex physiological system which is present in our bodies, and often we are not aware of it because it performs a silent homeostatic role. It contains three major components: the enzymes, cannabinoids, and receptors which perceive them. And it's just like any other physiological system in our bodies, we have to take care of it. It also shares a unique connection to phytocannabinoids, the cannabinoid-like molecules which are present in plant and which we can obtain from diet. So for example, if you think about the hemp plant. Polyunsaturated fatty acids serve as precursors, as building blocks for production of our own endocannabinoids in our bodies. For more information about the endocannabinoid system, please visit holisticmatters.com. This educational platform has a diverse assortment of materials, including articles on specific nutrients and a variety of health and well-being topics, animated videos and lectures from industry experts, monthly podcast episodes, infographics available for download, and more.